تيار المستقبل، تيار وطني مدني ديمقراطي.
ازدواجية السلاح الشرعي وغير الشرعي.
Good afternoon. It is Wednesday, August 14th. I'm Yumna Nofad, and these are today's headlines. A security operation to clear protesters camped out of the streets of Cairo leaves 40 people dead. The March 14 General Secretariat condemns the latest security incidents in Lebanon, saying that these issues have taken precedence over political, financial, and social concerns. And UN chemical weapons experts delay a trip to Syria because the UN and the Syrian government have yet to agree on arrangements for the investigation of alleged chemical weapons use. We begin today with Egypt. Security operation to clear protesters camped out on the streets of Cairo since President Mohamed Morsi was deposed by the military last month has left at least 40 people dead. The Egyptian Interior Ministry says 200 people have been arrested. By mid-morning, state television reported that security forces had finished breaking up the sit-in there. The Interior Ministry said security forces had total control over Nahda Square and that police forces had managed to remove most of the tents in the area. Security forces had blocked all access to the protest camp. In response to the security operation, the Muslim Brotherhood urged Egyptians to take to the streets to stop the massacre. And so supporters of Morsi torched 3 churches, throwing firebombs at Marjij's church in Sohag, a city with a large community of Coptic Christians who comprise up to 10% of Egypt's 84 million people. Turkish military delegation is in Beirut for talks with Lebanese officials over the recent kidnapping of Turkish civilian pilots. A source at Beirut airport told the Daily Star that the delegation, led by the deputy intelligence chief, arrived late yesterday, coming straight from Istanbul. The Turkish delegation met caretaker Interior Minister Marwan Sharbil. However, no statements were made following the hour-long meeting. The visit comes a day after Turkey said the abduction of Turkish Airlines pilot Murat Akfinar and his co-pilot Murat Akka in Lebanon last week could hamper ties between Ankara and Beirut, urging Lebanese authorities to work on winning the release of the 2 captives. Gunmen kidnapped the 2 Turkish Airlines crew members early on Friday, shortly after they left the capital's international airport towards their Beirut hotel. The March 14 General Secretariat is condemning the latest security incidents that have occurred in the country, saying that these issues have taken precedence over political, financial, and social concerns. It expressed in a statement after its weekly meeting it's feared that the international community will consider the Rafiq Hariri International Airport as unsafe. They also voiced their concern that the Bekaa may slip into sectarian strife in light of the recent kidnappings and shootings in the area. Al-Said Municipal Chief Ali Al-Hujairi and 2 of his companions were wounded, while a man was killed when their convoy came under fire in the Bekaa town of Al-Labwe on Sunday, shortly after they took part in a hostage swap that took place in Ras Balbak. The General Secretariat noted that the frequency of unrest in Lebanon increased after Hezbollah announced its involvement in the fighting in Syria, warning that the security incidents in Lebanon may return the country to civil war. And the Future Bloc is calling for a swift formation of a new cabinet before it is too late to deal with the serious security challenges threatening to undermine stability in the politically divided country. However, political sources are ruling out the formation of a new cabinet this month as the rival factions uphold their conflicting conditions over the makeup and role of the government's Prime Minister-designate Tamam Salam's decisions. Salam met with President Michel Sleiman to discuss the ongoing developments. The bloc also called on Sleiman and Salam to exercise their constitutional duties and rights by forming a new cabinet before they say it is too late. This week's meeting between Sleiman and the Premier-designate comes against the backdrop of mounting calls, mainly by the March 14 coalition, for the formation of a neutral, or what we call a fait accompli cabinet, after Salam's attempt to set up a government of rival politicians stumbled on conditions and counter-conditions set by both camps. And caretaker Foreign Minister Adnan Mansour is filing a complaint through Lebanon's mission to the United Nations against Israel's violation of the Blue Line. According to the National News Agency, the complaint comes in light of a landmine blast along the northern border with Lebanon that injured 4 Israeli soldiers. The complaint considered that the Israeli penetration patrol violated Lebanon's sovereignty, United Nations Security Council Resolution 1701, the international law, and threatens Lebanon's civil peace. Mansour, who is tasked with Lebanon's mission to file the complaint to the UN Security Council and UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, also called for filing the complaint before the UN General Assembly. A Lebanese army communique said the Israeli infantry army penetrated 400 meters inside Lebanon in the Labouni area. Caretaker Foreign Minister Adnan Mansour, the United Nations and Syrian government have yet to agree on arrangements for the investigation of alleged chemical weapons use. UN Deputy Spokesman Eduardo Del Boyer refused to say what specific issues were holding up the team's departure. The UN gave approval for the probe on July 31st, following an understanding reached during meetings in Damascus between the Syrian government and the UN that 3 sites where chemical weapons were allegedly used would be investigated. The team is expected to visit Khan al-Asal, a village on the southwestern outskirts of the embattled city of Aleppo, which was captured by the rebels in late July.
Over the weekend, the investigation team led by Dr. Erke Selstrom completed all the necessary logistical arrangements for its visit to Syria. In the meantime, the High Representative for Disarmament Affairs, Angela Kane, has continued her consultations with the government of Syria with a view to reaching agreement as soon as possible on the modalities essential for cooperation to ensure the proper, safe, and efficient conduct of the mission. Once the government of Syria confirms its acceptance of the modalities, the mission will depart without delay.
Coming up next, more siblings could lead to a lower divorce rate, what experts are saying when we return. For sure. Israel has released 26 Palestinian prisoners in the wake of renewed Middle East peace negotiations. Buses carrying the inmates, most of whom were held for attacks on Israel's citizens, left Ayalon prison in the center of the country late on Tuesday. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas greeted the 11 Palestinian prisoners sent to Ramallah in the occupied West Bank, while jubilant crowds could be seen or met the other 15 in the Gaza Strip. Israelis and Palestinians are set to launch talks in Jerusalem today, following a preparatory round 2 weeks ago in Washington. The prisoner release is part of an agreement to restart the talks after a 5-year freeze. The 26 inmates are the first of a total of 104 that Israel has promised to free within a year as part of a deal secured after months of shuttle diplomacy by U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry, who visited the region 6 times since March. UN Rights Chief Navi Pillay is urging the Gaza Strip's rulers, Hamas, to halt a string of executions planned after the end of the Muslim Eid al-Fitr holiday. I am deeply concerned at the possibility, she said, that executions might be carried out over the course of the next weeks in Gaza, and urgently appealed to the de facto authorities there not to implement any death sentences. During a statement, and during Ramadan itself, Hamas authorities had said that executions would take place after the holiday, but have given no specific date. Pillay described the judicial process in Gaza as deeply flawed. I am concerned, she said, about the process by which death sentences are imposed by military and civilian courts in the Gaza Strip. She said international human rights law requires rigorous fair trial standards in cases where death sentences are applied. The Secretary General of Tunisia's ruling Islamist party says he supports the formation of a nonpartisan cabinet in the country a day after secular opposition supporters rallied to oust the government. Tens of thousands had demonstrated on Tuesday in Bardo Square in Tunis in an escalation of ongoing protests since the assassination of opposition figure Mohamed Brahimi on July 25th. We need to form a non-political government to lead the country to elections within 6 months, Hamadi Jebali, the Secretary General of Ennahda and a former Prime Minister, said. With polarization between Islamists and secularists growing, concerns have been growing that Tunisia could drift towards an Egyptian scenario in which a disgruntled secular opposition topples an elected Islamist-led government. U.S. General of the NATO-led mission in Afghanistan, Joseph Dunford, says that foreign troops need to remain in the country after 2014 to help Afghan forces maintain security. Dunford said that the United States will not decide on how many troops will remain in Afghanistan post-2014, but the commander of all U.S. and allied forces said the future of the country's security will remain dependent on foreign soldiers for many years. Sitting in his Kabul office crammed with the 21st century instruments of command, encrypted computers and phone lines, as well as the mementos of his 6 months as commander, Dunford was not yet willing to pass judgment on how the war, this is America's longest, will be remembered.
There are a couple of retired general officers that have raised that figure of 13,000. That number was determined some months ago, probably 8 or 9 months ago. Much has changed in Afghanistan over the last 8 or 9 months, and so we're in the process of reviewing our enduring presence. But to tell you the truth, it's about a lot more than numbers. It's about what capability is required to sustain the Afghan security forces after 2014. What's important to remember is that the security for Afghanistan is being provided today by Afghan security forces. It'll be provided after 2014 by Afghan security forces. So the troop levels really are associated with sustainability of the Afghan forces. Our objective is a stable, secure, and unified Afghanistan, and we're still working towards that end. And if we achieve the objective of a secure, stable, unified Afghanistan, I think it'll be remembered as being successful.
United Nations inspectors arrive in Panama to investigate a North Korean ship caught carrying arms from Cuba amid suspicion that the vessel is in breach of a wide-ranging arms embargo in North Korea for its nuclear and ballistic missile program. A 6-member UN team headed to the Howard Air Force Base for a 3-day investigation into the undeclared arms shipment from Cuba after a request from the Panama government. The UN has imposed various sanctions on Pyongyang aimed at curbing its nuclear weapons program. A huge explosion and fire crippled an Indian Navy submarine in Mumbai, killing at least 18 of the sailors aboard. The fire was extinguished in about 2 hours, but a Navy official said it was unclear how many sailors were killed or injured. The official said that when the blast occurred, some sailors of other nearby units jumped into the sea in panic. A massive search operation has been launched to rescue the trapped sailors. The cause of the explosion is being investigated. The Navy said further details are not yet available. In Bangladesh, clashes between the police and activists supporting a major Islamic opposition political party left 1 man dead and about 20 injured in the second day of a nationwide general strike. Police used nightsticks, tear gas and rubber bullets as dozens of protesters belonging to the Jemaat Islami party tried to march into the streets of Dhaka's southern Jatrabari suburb. On Tuesday, opposition activists set off crude bombs, blocked roads and burned vehicles to enforce a 48-hour nationwide general strike, injuring dozens of people. Oh, good news for you today. The more siblings you have, the less likely you are to get divorced when you grow up or get married. This is according to a study presented at a major convention of American sociologists. Doug Downey of Ohio State University said that in terms of divorce, having no siblings, or just 1 or 2, does not make much of a practical difference. He said, but when you compare children from large families to those with only 1 child, there is a meaningful gap in the probability of divorce. Using data from the General Social Survey, Downey and his fellow researchers calculated that the likelihood of divorce in adulthood drops 2% with each additional brother or sister a person has. So having more siblings means more experience dealing with others, and that seems to provide additional help in dealing with a marriage relationship as an adult. The General Social Survey, a trove of raw sociological data, comprises interviews with 57,000 adults across the U.S. by the National Opinion Research Center at the University of Chicago. So keep having more children, or get married to have some. It's Mark Zan of our Bulletin. Here's a reminder. The security operation to clear protesters camped out on the streets of Cairo leaves 40 people dead. The March 14 General Secretariat condemns the latest security incidents in Lebanon, saying that these issues have taken precedence over political, financial, and social concerns. And UN chemical weapons experts delay a trip to Syria because the UN and the Syrian government have yet to agree on arrangements for the investigation of alleged chemical weapons use. Your midweek headlines here live on Future Television in English. Join me again tomorrow at 4:20 for all the latest in the country. And until then, take care.
احنا تيار المستقبل، تيار وطني مدني ديمقراطي.
ازدواجية السلاح الشرعي وغير الشرعي.